Hi, this is Amrita Sukumar, and I'm bringing to you this podcast called Unsettling. Look around you. Everyone is trying to create their own story. Make a tiny change in someone's life by just following their passion and in turn, inspiring the others to follow suit. This podcast brings to you stories of people who have defied the definition of settled set by the society and have created their own. They have found happiness in their version of settled. What is yours? Welcome to another episode of Unsettling. Today I have with me a beautiful and talented dancer, Swati Prasad, and we will be talking about her journey of learning and now teaching Odyssey. She has also specialized in contemporary dance form and has learned Kalaripayattu. Hi Swati, how are you?
Hi Amrita, I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm awesome as usual. How was the lockdown treating you?
Lockdown has been a blessing in disguise. It's also, I must say, it's a privilege to have a roof and a family and food to eat every day. So
That's true.
taking that into account, I think it's been a time for reflection and rethinking what I've been doing personally, professionally,
Wow.
coming head on with the inner demons and sitting with it and overcoming that. Yeah. So it's been a
Wonderful.
process for sure.
I think everyone has got a chance to introspect and think. Um, I mean,
Yeah.
find that me time which they were missing for so long. Find. I
Yes.
hope they learn something from this and maybe find time for their family and for themselves as much as possible. So, Swati,
Yeah.
what is your genesis story? How did you start? What inspired you to dance, and how did it all begin?
So dance for me was not the typical I started at 4 because that's what you hear when it comes to classical dance.
Yes.
It was, I mean, the part of it is true. I did start young, thanks to the typical Indian to be, or rather a typical Asian way of upbringing where your mom or your folks push you into some activity. So
Right.
that's how it started for me. It started with Bharatanatyam. Me and my sister was a more proactive and extrovert. She is. And I used to be very speculative and I was very choosy. So it became a stint. It became Bharatanatyam, and then I did ballet for a few years.
Wow.
This was all my mom like pushing me out of the door to to the world and giving me that exposure.
Uh-huh.
And contemporary dance, I think I was also I'm the younger one, so I was also looking up to my sister, what she was doing, and contemporary dance happened.
Mhm.
Subconsciously, I think all this exposure and training kind of showed me the path to Odyssey, which has become my most authentic form of expression. This happened when I was in college, and I had an injury from taking contemporary dance,
Oh,
and someone told me that Odyssey is a more
on the ground.
gentler form,
Yes.
gentler on the body, so maybe you can shift to that, but it's nothing but gentle. It still isn't. Like 7 years down, every day the same beautiful pain every
Oh,
single day. So it comes across very gentle and graceful, but there's a lot that happens to make it
okay.
look gentle and graceful.
I think
So the Odyssey happened. Yeah.
everything is like that, right? Everything. It seems very easy on the grass is always on the other side, and it seems easier when you look at it rather when you do it. So
Yeah, absolutely. What the
Odyssey
soil
happened.
and the
Yeah.
nourishment and all that everyday nurturing is what makes the grass greener. So
Wow.
that that enrichment is definitely yeah. I think that's kind of been in the back of my head lately. It's good that you brought it up. This nourishment we give, we always nourishment, we think about food, nutrition, right? But what about
Right.
our minds? What about our souls, our body?
Right.
There's so much that we need to
Beautiful.
ponder on.
So you were saying that Odyssey happened to you in college, and that is how. So did you pursue it full time then, or then later on did you do a course for it?
I started later in college. So this was third year in college, and I got to do an exchange program in UK. So
Okay.
just when I started to do Odyssey, I was there in UK and a year exchange. So interestingly, that was my first time out of the house and, you know, like seeing the world and being on my own and all that. And Odyssey has became my companion, like in the most darkest, quietest, loneliest time. You know, in the West, it can get quite
I know.
lonely. I mean, quiet also, like literally quiet, which
Yes.
we are not used to. So this practice kind of brought me that solace and kind of a grounding, and almost it also gave me this identity because I started to practice in and started to perform in the university and around the university. I started to teach there.
Wow.
It all, I mean, of course I was a student myself. Whatever I learned and whatever I knew, I was just sharing, and it was very well received, and it kind of, you know, gave me a push or an encouragement that that way, and it kind of stumbled on from there. I came back.
Okay. How many years do you have to learn Odyssey before they can, I mean, you can call yourself a guru?
Call yourself a guru is like a
No, you can't call
is
yourself a guru.
something
Someone else calls you a guru.
where
I'm so
I
sorry.
would I don't know. Either way, I mean, that for me, I don't think that's my destination anyway, to be a guru.
Okay.
Maybe you mean like to be an expert,
Expert.
or
I mean, someone who teaches and before you start.
who's come to a
Yeah.
a level where you can
Yes.
share confidently.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I think, very personal. It depends with each person's ability to learn and grasp and retain it, and how dedicated and committed one is to that form, any form really.
Okay.
Of course, like the reason why they say classical forms, especially classical forms, because it's very rigorous. It's better to start early because your body is more supple and more easy, and it's easier to grasp something at that age. But that's also debatable because one has to be interested. You always see like parents like really pushing
That's
the kid
true.
into doing it. One, if the kid is really genuinely interested and enjoys it, even the progress and the continuity of that into adult years is also different. But I have seen some amazing, some very well-known path-breaking dancers who started, some in late 20s, some early, in teenage years, and they have found their way. So it's really, it comes down to the determination and the will that person has.
So this is just a random question because when I went and learned Bharatnatyam, there were levels to it, right? There's level 1, level 2. We got a lot of certifications. Is that the same in Odyssey as well?
There are institutions and boards that do that. Odyssey does have. There are 2 boards. The well-known ones are Gandharva, and there's one in Chandigarh. This is a more, I think, a system-based approach to training.
Okay.
Where, I mean, we're used to that, right? We're used to that British way of standard and exams and all that. But when you look at traditionally, when you look at the paramparik, what do you say? We say
Gurukul system kind of situation.
The Gurukul system, where it's passed down over gurus through through students. Um, this kind of learning is the more natural way, used to be at least, and it with times have changed, so that's why this system of levels have also come in. But it's also become a question of how authentic is this levels and certificates really, is it really equating to the knowledge being passed down, is
True.
it, or is it just coming down to papers and certificates?
Okay. So
So
how do you teach? Do you choose the Gurukul system or do you have certificates?
well, to be honest, Amrita, my form of teaching is just from my own experiences,
Okay.
and I I always considered to be myself to be a student. Um, I see it more like a learning and sharing process. So it's a two-way exchange. Like I'm always telling I mean, it's also very natural that when you learn so much about your own um, expression, like your own way of dancing and moving. Is like a reflection, right? You're seeing your own reflection when you teach. Especially, I wonder how it is
Right.
for other
I know.
subjects or forms. So it's hard for me to put it under this. I teach the Paramparic way. I send my students
Right.
uh, s- uh, to boards to complete their exams. I don't follow either. Like I think I just go by what I feel feels right. So
Okay. So where did you learn Odissi from? You've done a proper course in dance and you've taken a certification. So where did you learn?
so I did a
What
mixture
was it?
of both. Uh, Odyssey was in a Gurukul. Like I consciously made a decision that I wanted to be involved.
Uh-huh.
Um,
So you went and stayed there, right?
yeah. So I did a small, since I did my bachelor's in travel and tourism, I did like a very short stint with a travel company, and I took that decision to just, and also with the support of my family, like I would definitely not be. I think that's so crucial for artists, especially. I
Right.
mean, I hats off to artists who fight that system. I mean, it's when it's difficult for them to do that.
True.
uh, I've been lucky enough to have that support, and I could take that time to explore what I was very passionate about.
Okay.
So I took that leap, and I went to Gurukul, Mahagami Gurukul in Aurangabad. It's
Acha.
led by Parvati Didi. So yeah, it just started there, kind of a more inward journey, I would say, because that place resonates a lot with her. Didi's approach is a lot to do with just not dance and performance, but why we do it and for what.
Wow.
So that really, that those years in the Gurukul has kind of definitely has been a foundation to my approach and learning now.
Okay. So did you find why do you dance in there when you what inspired?
It changes every day. It changes every day. But of course, I think the more grounding, the more natural why is, I think, that quest of um, finding yourself,
Mhm.
finding the true essence of yourself. And I find this form to be a path. Like there are many paths you can do that, and this practice of dance has been one path to a journey to know myself. And it's such a it's isn't it beautiful to share an extension of yourself through this beautiful art form, rich in so much of philosophy and
Yeah.
mythology and tradition, mixed with that. with this grandeur of this form and this land, and
Right.
you try to connect to all this, and in the process, I think you kind of discover.
I wanted to ask you, you've learned two different dance styles. One is contemporary and one is Odissi. So,
Yeah.
Odyssey have a particular mudra, like each mudra has a meaning, and those are the only uh, forms that you can use to tell a story to the audience through dance. So, is it like a syllabus that you have to learn, or is it something that comes organically?
The training goes so with contemporary.
Mm-hmm.
uh, I have trained in contemporary not as rigorous as Odyssey. It's just been a course that I did, and I do it as a more um, as a supporting form, so that I understand the idea of movement better. That's the reason why I took contemporary. I mean, to understand the more Western approach of body and mind. So contemporary
Right.
has definitely been a huge opener for that. While in classical dance, mudras is something that stands out for sure for
Right.
somebody who's new to it.
Mm-hmm.
Mudras is gestures that we make with our palms, and
Correct.
they are a form, one of the forms of expression in classical dance, and they are symbols. Like typically in Indian tradition, we have a lot of symbolisms,
Right.
from the idols, the gods, to the temples. All of them are symbolic to something much more higher and meaningful. So the
Okay.
same thing even applies to Indian classical dance as well. The mudras are used to express something as simple as a flower or a tree, or it could be a more abstract form to express a more abstract version of the world, of yourself, of the soul. So it becomes a part of the expression. It is definitely a more prominent visual side of it. But
Right.
mudras has like a very systemic understanding and usage and application that we refer to in Natya
Okay.
Shastra, which is like the you can say a Bible for
Structure Bible
learning.
on which everything is based. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a book on dramaturgy. So it's a very ancient text. So it comes from there, and there are many uh, divisions or commentaries that has simplified those mudras that we use now, which is relevant even now. And it's a challenge to express it to a more modern audience who's
Right.
not aware. But I think at certain, there's one point where you kind of transcend beyond all this
Okay.
visual aspect of it.
Swati, you spoke about mudra, and I wanted to know which are the other aspects. You said mudra is one of the aspects. So, which are the other aspects of dance that stand out that a layman might want to know?
So mudras is a part of Angika Abhinaya, which means literally translated the expression through body.
Okay.
So mudras being a part of your body is, and then when you combine your arms, all your major limbs, and the rest of your body, it becomes Angika. So mudras is included in Angika Abhinaya, and this is just one of the 4 aspects
Okay.
of expression. And the other 3 are Vachika Abhinaya, which is verbal communication. We don't see this much in all the dance forms. Kuchipudi uses a lot because
Okay.
of the drama tradition they have.
Acha.
And the next would be Aharya, which is the more visually appealing aspect. The Aharya is the costume that each dancer dance form um, acquires, inspired from the land and from the different flavors of the land. And the last one is a Satvika Abhinaya, which is the more subtle aspect of expression,
Okay.
which is experienced by the, I mean, it is evoked by the dancer and experienced by the audience. So it's more ethereal in nature.
Wow.
It's a more like higher in nature. So, yeah. And this
I've
is
never
all
seen.
prescribed in. I mean, just to know, for people who are interested in the source, it's all from Abhinay Darpan. I'm sure dancers know this by heart. Like it's like a pocketbook for many Indian classical dancers. It's one of the commentaries of Natya Shastra.
Wonderful, wonderful. I didn't know about this. I've definitely learned Bharatanatyam as a kid, and after that, I've never pursued it. But I remember seeing one performance of Kathak. I've never seen Odyssey. And when you talk about the real part, know what you mean, because I was sitting in the audience and I could sense that pain or anguish that the dancer was just showing by just tiny movements, which was beautiful. So, wow, thank you for sharing this with me and sharing this with us as well. This has been really interesting. Is the choreography of the dance sequence set according to certain rules or regulations that have been passed on for generations, or are you allowed to choreograph the sequences on your own?
There is a structure that we follow. Like if you're talking about the sequence of the nature of choreographies, like typically, of course, like I think everybody knows the classical shows go on longer, and there is a reason for that. Because you're journeying, we are taking the audience through different aspects of the form, like to see to experience the different aspects of the form and the storytelling, of course. So it always when you look at it as a storytelling aspect, it's heavily rooted in mythology, right? Like it's very much rooted in the stories of this land. I like to use the word stories because these are story. It was written by somebody, and we have there's such rich imagination that we hold in this country that is translated into different art forms. So to kind of encapsulate all these stories and bring it to an audience is of course it will be broken down into different aspects. So if you look at the sequence of choreographies, it always starts with. So
that is what mainly I wanted to know. Is it mostly based on mythology, or is it okay if you try to maybe portray some kind of a modern day story via Odyssey?
If you look at the history of most of the forms in most of the classical forms, especially, it has been it is inspired from the temple culture, and it was for the temple tradition. So naturally, it was in all the dance forms, the singing and the dancing was in praise of that Lord, of that story of that Lord, and the many aspects and the many versions of that Lord. So this was all like a form of prayer through movement, if you look at it from dance point of view. So naturally, it is based in mythology, and traditionally, when you look at it, yes. Now, since the whole temple going, that nature of people is changing, and we are questioning so much about, we have come to that age of questioning everything that is and there is. So that it's good that, I mean, that's only way we can protect and evolve with these forms, right? And they still prove to be relevant because they are, after all, a symbolic language. Just like we have different languages that we speak at our homes, the same way these languages are just a form through movement. So when you look at it at that point of view, just as a movement language, we can still interpret many stories. necessarily be mythology. It doesn't necessarily has to be Shiva or Krishna.
Okay.
We can use that one when one has absorbed and inculcated that with within their body so well that it becomes a way to express. It becomes natural to just interpret anything, and
Wow.
you probably see that, right? Like it's easy to interpret any lot of movies and film
That's
songs
true.
have been,
So you're saying
and
that
that's a popularistic, yeah.
that's true. So that's what you're saying. So you've learned the language of dance. You've learned the language of Odyssey. So if any story is
Yeah,
thrown at you, you are able to use that language to narrate the story.
yeah, exactly. And when you
Wow.
really have that good grasp of it, it just flows. It's natural for the body to just express anything.
Yeah. Wow.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be mythology. Of course, like if you want to stick to a format and you are calling it a classical, rather a Shastriya. Shastriya, we say classical is not the most ideal, the right term.
Okay.
It's a borrowed word. Shastriya is is a more um, is a more
Cultural.
apt
Shastri
word.
means cultural, right?
Shastra means the texts, ancient texts,
Acha.
the old, the Vedas and everything. So the dance forms that is uh, evolved from that is born from the Vedas. It is Natya Shastra is the fifth Natya Veda. It's the fifth Veda. So that's how Natya Shastra came.
Wow.
So when you look at it like that, it is a Shastriya Nritya. Like all that we do is born from the Vedas. For
Wow.
those, I mean, this may be getting too technical, but
It's
Vedas is
not. It's
just
not. It's very
ancient.
interesting to know all this because honestly, where would I go? Even if I go and research on Google, there is so much information out there that I, as a layman, will get so confused. But when it comes from a
Yeah,
person who has already learned it, has been practicing it for so long, it gives an
yeah.
insight one into you, Swati, as a dancer, what you feel, how you function, how you are, uh, as you said, storytelling through dance. And it's really interesting to know these tiny, tiny details, which maybe I wouldn't be able to find somewhere else.
Yeah, I agree. I
Having
also
fun.
always look for stories through somebody who's experienced it. It's always interesting, no, than being bookish.
Exactly, exactly. It's wonderful to know a personal story.
Yeah,
As you said, this dance has come from temple culture. So, is the music
Mhm.
still live or pre-recorded? Because now we've moved into the modern culture. We've got big systems and everything. But is it still live
Yeah.
recorded?
I mean, it's sad to. I mean, if talking from for Odyssey,
Mm-hmm.
um, it's. I mean, there is an effort to revive the Odyssey music by training more musicians, but
Mm-hmm.
it's become a matter of. I mean, it's you need to be like super well equipped in terms of having a good arts management that is helping you run the production, because it comes down to um, how you're able to pull the show together
Okay.
with funds raising, right? It becomes
Mm-hmm.
expensive to have
Okay.
live musicians.
True.
So when you look at it economically, to have live music
Mm-hmm.
is challenging. So that's why you see more of pre-recorded, which also works. Like you said, we have good systems and all that. So it does give you a part of the experience, but a more complete experience would be live music. And that has been an effort to bring it back with
Correct.
uh, with proper coordinate, with like good coordination from different uh, different pillars of making this art form run.
Wonderful. So, have you done any shows till now? Any live shows? Have you been performing in Bangalore?
I have since I trained in Gurukul, I've performed with Mahagami Gurukul with the ensemble, and
Mm-hmm.
then after I came back to Bangalore, I joined Rityantar,
Acha.
run by Madhulita Mahapatra.
Mhm.
Madhu Devi. So I performed with their ensemble for 2 years, and now I'm kind of finding my own path in this field and exploring. So it's kind of been an independent. I've been in a more independent place right now with these wonderful gurus and mentors to seek out for.
So, what does your typical day look like now? What do you do?
Now, I'm. I must confess that I struggle with discipline. I'm
Okay.
somebody who wants every day to be different, every day to be like exciting with some, something to look forward to. I think that's always there, no? Like you want to
Yeah.
look forward to something. There's something that you want to experience, and so this whole routine, like the routine, that practice that we need to do as dancers to perfect or aim for that elusive perfection
True.
is necessary. Like it's definitely one of the biggest assets that dancers will acquire and need to acquire. I have, luckily, I think this lockdown period has kind of put me in that uneasy place of kind of encountering this discipline and being at it every single day, come what may. Like it's also very like, emotionally it can be uh, quite
It's
challenging in
challenging.
this
It's
times.
really challenging. I
Yeah,
know.
because there is this need to be inventive with your practice. I think
True.
it's just, for me personally, I can't, of course, like there is so much to work on. Even like the basics that we do, there's still so much scope to get better.
Mhm.
um but every day it's so different, but typically now I've kind of, it also keeps you sane. Like to keep you sane, you have to do a few things, like have a structure for the day and also have
Mhm.
some time off.
Right.
So I start early. I start with yoga and meditation. I
Mhm.
mean, the whole nature of yoga, to kind of
Wow.
bring myself together, whatever it takes. Some asana practice, some meditation. I also intersperse it with Calorie alternatively, but mornings are usually kind of body and mind conditioning.
Okay.
And breakfast, a simple light breakfast, and I follow it up with Odyssey practice.
Mhm.
And that goes on for 2-3 hours.
Mhm.
Mm, and it's different every day. Like there's a plan, and I try to get into that mode.
Mm.
And the rest of post lunch, it's more of writing and reading, and I'm trying to revive a blog that I started long back, and kind of taken up small projects and yeah, training and learning, and all that thinking, pondering happens later in the day. This has been largely the uh, day, how the day looks like.
Wonderful. So you've got at least your base structure in your hand where you know you're going
Yeah,
to meditate, do
it's
yoga, and you're
definitely,
going to
yeah.
dance, but then it's going to be different every day. So I think today was exciting. You did something different, recorded this with me.
Yeah. See, this was something that I was looking forward to, like chat up with you, and
Oh, I
it's
know.
definitely.
Thank you. So you just mentioned Kalaripayattu. So I don't think most of our listeners would be knowing what Kalaripayattu is. So can you just give a small gist? What is Kalaripayattu and what do you do in that?
So
Where
Kalaripayattu
did you
is an
learn? I mean,
ancient martial.
yeah.
It's about Calorie. Calorie is an ancient martial arts
Mhm.
form originating from Kerala.
Yes.
It was a defensive. It was used as a defense form of art during the
Right.
British time, and it has evolved into a more healing martial art nature of practice.
Sure.
It's a very intense and physically. I mean, anything that is so rooted in tradition always has this nature to awaken you beyond the physical nature, right?
True, true.
So Calorie has that,
Mhm.
and yeah, I mean that's the basic form, but it's also inspired a lot from nature. Uh,
Mhm.
a lot from nature. So you see the animal postures, and yeah, you will see everything that's to do with nature, and it is practiced in an earth pit. Like it's you, there's a
There's a
pit
sand
that
pit and
is
then
dug
there's
up.
one temple. Yeah, there's a temple in the north corner, right?
There is, yeah, of course, there is the Vastu aspect of it,
Right.
but it is done inside a pit, so it gives you that kind of calm and surrender when you do the practice. So traditionally, it's practiced like that, but in cities, it's difficult to manage that. So the teachers now uh, do it
They teach
differently.
on concrete rather
As in,
than
like,
earth.
whatever. Yeah, it's really, I mean, it's really sad, but at least one way to share it with the urban crowd. And
Yeah.
that's how luckily I was one of those who could learn, even though it was not the best of spaces, but really gifted, wonderful teachers I
I
learned
think
from.
that's exactly. I mean, when you told that about the earth pit, that is when I realized that
Yeah.
it's so necessary to be closer to the ground, right? To be grounded,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that is all the difference that it makes when you are learning it inside a closed room with tube lights on, rather than maybe learning it at
Yeah,
in
it's
the
it's
earth pit.
definitely it's something else, and it's the same with any art form. The space is so crucial to the way you interact with the form,
Mhm.
because you will become very sensitive to the space you dance with, because it becomes a
Wow.
part of you. It becomes a part of the movement. I mean, it's a conversation you have with the space, right? That's
Mhm.
it. Eventually you feel that. So the space that you create becomes so crucial uh, when it becomes a serious practice. I think one will realize
So, so
that.
how were you drawn to Calorie? When did you read about it, learn about it?
When I was learning contemporary dance in Attakalari, it's a
Acha.
contemporary institute in Bangalore.
Uh-huh.
So there I was introduced to Kalaripayattu. It's one of the forms that they teach.
Acha.
And I was like, this is because as somebody who's always been very curious of body and the ways of movement,
Mhm.
Calorie really kind of, it gave me that click to pursue it more. So I continued with that. I found a teacher in Bangalore,
Mhm.
Krishna Pratap sir, and I started with him, and I did a diploma in Attakalari,
Acha.
a diploma in movement arts and mixed media.
Mhm.
So there, Kalaripayattu is one of the main disciplines,
Okay.
and that kind of grounded my practice further. And since I know just a little bit of that form, I continue to use it more as a body conditioning. I wish it is challenging to pursue two very ancient, very rich arts parallelly and give that time and mind and effort.
Mhm.
So it is definitely quite challenging, but I try to keep both the practice alive.
I'm glad you do. I'm glad you're practicing both, and both of the forms are making sure that you introspect and learn more about yourself, which I think
Yeah,
very successfully by now. So,
not really, not even
challenge,
close.
not even close. As you said, it's like the pursuit of happiness, pursuit of perfection. I feel you never
Yeah,
reach that limit because there's always something different or new to learn. It's always going to be there, um, but at least
yeah.
seemingly close to it, hopefully. So,
Yes, you totally.
what is the scope of teaching dance full time?
teaching dance is one of the main source of income for most of the dancers.
True.
As in India, we don't have a system where performing is more accessible, and it can be one of the mainstream. Of course, it's not a mainstream profession. So teaching becomes the go-to ways for a dancer to earn his or her living. It is definitely the go-to plan. And of course, you can get creative in the way you approach it. It can just be a studio space, and where you just take community classes. I mean, there is like a more safer way to do it, right? Like you have community classes, and then the next step is to have like your own ensemble group, and then you kind of, so that is a more natural way that you see that happens. And it makes sense to do that you kind of build your space,
Audience, build your people.
it over years you kind of get there, and maybe the nature of your company or the way you teach will also evolve with time.
Okay. So, what is the message that you would like to give up and coming dancers? Anybody who wants to pursue this?
I'm an up and coming dancer.
Yeah, but you're
Hopefully,
also a
I
guru.
still hope I am an up and coming. I am no guru. What are you saying? I'm no
You
guru.
teach, anybody who teaches is a guru.
Well, it depends on how it's looked at other side.
Okay.
I don't know how it is looked at other side, but also my teaching is very unconventional, and and although I've been in this learning this form, I've been a student of this form for 8 years now. And it's only been rather a recent, teaching happens in the process, but more officially I've started to teach since last 2 years.
Okay.
So I'm really like a newcomer in this field if you look at it.
Okay.
But from my experience, I would just say that if you have this conviction to what you do, dancers or no dancers or any form that, or anything that gives you this conviction that you feel really strong about, do not let the outer voices influence that.
Wow.
Just follow it. Just give yourself in. It'll take time, just like how we need to nurture a big beautiful tree to come up. It takes time. So just be in it, soak in it. There will be storms sometimes if there's full sunshine. You just go through it. But if you keep at it, I can say this with that conviction that you will find that peace and solace and the fruit of all that process.
Fruit, yes.
Yeah.
So, this is one question I ask everybody. And this phase also, I tell everybody that what is your definition of settled? What would settled mean to you?
Settled is when I am feeling absolutely comfortable with myself.
Right.
Like there is no qualm about I can't say no insecurities. Fear is something that kind of eats us up, and
True.
in any form, right? A small or big, tangible or intangible. So I would say settled is something when you're fearless.
Okay. That sounds really well. Yes, so settled means to be fearless. And I think I have come to the end of my questionnaire. Is there anything that you would like to tell apart from this?
I am so glad that we got to do this.
Me
And
too.
yeah, and it's such a great way to connect over a topic that's just not my story, but I hopefully that this will resonate with many minds and hearts. So I'm so glad you started this. It's such a beautiful initiative.
Thank you so much. Thank
We need more of such. Yeah, we really need. This is such a great way to know about people and their journeys, because what we usually see is the end product, right? And it's wonderful that you're curious, that we are curious. I'm always like looking for what makes this person this way. So it's good,
Exactly.
it's nice that you're digging that up, and I hope it goes a long way. I'm sure it will.
Thank you. I hope so too. I hope people get inspired by this entire series. They are able to see a lot more stories of people who are doing things that are offbeat, and people who are doing well at things that they are doing out offbeat. So thank you so much, Swati, for doing this with me. Thank you for taking time out of your life
Thank you.
to
Thank
the
you.
podcast. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So, is there any links that you would like to share to your dance class or maybe your shows, anything that you're doing online?
So Instagram is mostly my professional space.
Okay.
I don't know if I can even say that. Like I'm like this. I just come once in a blue moon and share what I'm, because I tend to go into this hibernation mode quite often, where I just
Uh-huh.
am working on something and I completely cut off.
Okay.
And when something comes out, I share it on Instagram. So
Yeah.
I've been actively, well, at least like once in 2 weeks, I've been sharing about a blog, which
Okay.
is the journey of a dancer. Like I
Wow.
started, it's been like a 4 year thing. Yeah. So people who like to read, maybe can see that. And there
Okay.
are like, of course, like photos, videos, Instagram, no? So it's, yeah.
Done. So I will be adding the links in the description. You can check her page out. You can check the blog out as well, and let her know how you find her work. Till then, signing off. Stay tuned to Unsettling.
Yay! This is so cool. Thank you.
Hello, people. Thank you for tuning in. If you like this episode and you like Unsettling, all you have to do is give me a feedback. And for that, please visit my Instagram page, that is Amrita Sukumar underscore unsettling. And well, you can send me a DM or you can send me a mail. All the details are there on that page. I would love for you to just tell me how you feel. Yeah. And I will get back to you. And if you have any people who would like to share their stories, you have to let me know because I would love to listen to them. Till then, stay tuned to Unsettling. Like, share, subscribe, follow, let your friends know, and stay safe. Yeah? Bye.